my outcome doesn't determine his goodness. So then fast forward to 2020 and I get COVID, and I felt a little bit more prepared to say my outcome does not determine his goodness, and I can look at his track record, and his track record's really good. And it doesn't mean that my life's going to turn out perfect. It just means that I have history with God. I've seen that he shows up. I've seen that he's faithful. I've seen that he's kind. I've seen that he's good. And I think when you've got that track record with God, your doubts are still going to come, but you still see that he always is who he says that he is.
This is CIA, Contagious Influencers of America, the podcast from the producers of Keep the Faith. I'm David Sams, and today I have the 8-time Grammy nominee and 5-time GMA Dove Awards Female Artist of the Year, NATALIE GRANT, with me right here in the studio, and she is one of my very favorites. Gosh, she's had over 500 million streams. Get that, 500 million. And she's a multiple number one recording artist. She's had multiple number one singles, multiple number one albums on the Billboard charts. She's also an author. She has a number of charity. Well, her big charity is Hope for Justice, and that's a non-profit organization that helps fight against human trafficking. And they now have 32 offices across 9 countries and 5 continents, and has helped some almost 103,000 children just in the last year. I mean, that's just crazy. So NATALIE's going to be with us. Now, I have to tell you a funny NATALIE story. Well, not so funny. She was supposed to be here, let me see, what was it? Top of November or something like that. And we got a call. Well, NATALIE can't come. She's got a little issue. She's going to the doctor or going to the hospital. And I'm like, okay. An artist is bailing on us. They have a bigger gig, bigger show to do. You know, I got that side of me coming out, and I'm like, oh, what the heck? And guess what? It wasn't that at all. She wanted to come. She really did. But she and her husband, Bernie, came down with COVID. Oh, I felt so bad for them. Oh, my gosh, at the same time. And, and she has kids and all that. And, oh, my gosh, she'll tell that. She'll tell her story. So she's going to be here in just a minute. And she really, truly is one of my absolute all-time favorite artists. And I can't wait to share her story with you, especially as we get into the Christmas season, because she is such a gift to us all. Hey, I told you a few days or a couple weeks ago that the MyPillow folks got me the MyPillow for Cash. My cat. Now Cash is no ordinary cat. He's actually a star cat. He has probably been photographed with celebrities more than any other cat on this planet. I mean, it's crazy. Every time artists come to record with me, or authors, or sports stars, they all want their picture with, not me, but with Cash. And so this cat ends up on Instagram, on Facebook. It's crazy. So, and he wants to sleep with me every night. And this is no ordinary cat. Not only is he a little, he thinks he's a little star. So, he wants his side of the bed, so to speak. He also weighs 28 pounds. This is a 28-pound cat. I have delivery people that come here to the house to deliver stuff, and Amazon people, that they come to the door and they look at him and go, thank you, I don't need your signature, or I'll just leave it out here, forget about it, because they see this cat and they're thinking, is this guy like raising mountain lions in his house or what? Because Cash is quite large, and he's got these big muscles, and I have him cut with like a lion's tail, because, he's a Maine Coon, and their fur really grows quite, it can get to be a couple inches, and that makes them look even bigger. And I do have them trimmed like every 3 months or so. But nevertheless, I've been thinking about what can I do to get this cat to allow me to have more of my bed. So I decided, you know what? I see Mike Lindell on TV all the time talking about his beds for pets, his MyPillow dog beds, for example. And I thought, well, if these things work for dogs, they got to work for cats. So I decided to get me a MyPillow for cash. Okay. And I thought, well, you know what? I will put that MyPillow at the next to my bed, right? And maybe I can get him into it where he feels special and he feels like, oh man, this is so cozy. And, but at first I tried that. He did not go for it. I'm putting it out there. He was like, no, I think I want up here on my bed. Move your feet, move your body over, scoot over. This is my side of the bed. And I thought, wow, you know what? I don't know about the MyPillow for dogs. Well, of course, then again, he's a cat, so maybe that's why he didn't take to it. But then I got a little smarter, and I decided I'm going to put that MyPillow up there on the bed at the bottom, where I normally put my feet or try to put my feet. And if I can get him hooked on this thing, and then I put it right next to the bed in a few nights, then maybe, just maybe, he will go for it. So that's what I did. When the pet version of MyPillow was right there on my bed, Cash thought, wow, this guy's sharing one of his pillows with me. This is pretty cool. I've moved up in the world. And then he took to it. He took to this daggone special MyPillow bed for pets. And then I thought, after a couple of days, okay, all right. Now I'm going to put this thing right next to my bed. And now that he's into it, maybe he'll go for it. Well, I get ready for bed, and I'm doing my teeth and doing all of my stuff I normally do. And I normally give him his treats before I get into bed, and he's upstairs doing his thing and having his treats. And then I can hear him coming down the steps, and he's a big cat, so I hear him. I'm like, oh no, here he comes, and he comes down the steps and in from the living room into my bedroom doors, and by golly, he gives me this look, and he looks at me, and he looks down at the MyPillow for pets on the floor. Then he looks up at me, and he looks at the MyPillow for pets on the floor. And he just, how cats, how they sort of, do that little move, that little, I'm moving across the floor. I own this place. He had that kind of, I own this place kind of look. He goes over, and by golly, he just gets up on that MyPillow, and he does this little, what do you call it? Like a patty cake thing, or a little, he does this thing with his paws where he just and feels it out. He just I guess it's called nesting. Is that what it's called? And he just does this little thing, and then he just crawls up on his MyPillow, and he just curls up, and I'm like, wow, I get my bed back after all these years. This cat's like 12 years old, and he's been sleeping in my bed for many of those 12 years. And he gets on that MyPillow, and he just, next thing I know is I'm in bed, and oh gosh, what was it? 5 minutes later, I'm like, I have never heard him purr so loud in my life. I got that warm and fuzzy thing going in my heart that my Cash is just eating it up and loving it and feeling loved on. So I can't recommend the MyPillow dog bed any more than this, even for cats. Okay, even for cats. These are made with the same patented fill as the MyPillow that you probably have. I mean, who doesn't have the MyPillow now? I mean, I have 4 of them. So it's the same stuff for dogs and cats and pets. It's the same stuff that you get in your version of MyPillow that you have right now. And this will help keep your animal cool and comfortable. And the inner bed, it's removable, which is really cool. It has a zippered cover, and they're both washable and dryable. This thing comes with a 10-year limited warranty, so it is really, really cool. You can get a small size, a medium, or a large size, and they start as $19.99 with the promo code. So all you got to do is go to mypillow.com. Click on the Radio Listeners Specials Square. Radio Listeners Specials Square. And then use the promo code KeepTheFaith, or call 800-422-5310. That's 800-422-5310. And that's at mypillow.com. Make sure you use the promo code KeepTheFaith. And I'm telling you right now, you will be just blown away with how your pet responds to this thing. I know I kind of miss having Cash up there on the bed with me now. For so long, it's like I had him all curled up up there, but in the middle of the night, the problem with it is that sometimes I would, by mistake, I would not kick him, but or my foot would sort of knock into him, and he didn't like that. He let me know. He let me know, this is my side of the bed. Get out of here. Get on your side. And sometimes when that happens, it's not too much fun at 2 a.m. So check it out. Go to mypillow.com or call the number that I gave you, the 800 number at 800-422-5310. Okay, enough of that. I had to share that story because it's crazy. Hey, let's get to my interview now with NATALIE GRANT. She is a gem. She's one of a kind. We love her, and she is one of these artists that just keeps pumping out the hit after hit. She has over 500 million streams right now, and that's just absolutely mind-boggling. So here she is, NATALIE GRANT. Well, I see you're alive.
Some days it feels like barely, right? Oh.
So tell me, you and Bernie, and did the kids get it?
They did not get it, which I am still amazed by. Thank you, Lord, that they didn't get it. But I think it also maybe shows me, I know there are definitely some kids that have gotten it, but I think maybe children are more resilient a little bit to it, because I breathe and kiss all over my kids, and yet somehow they didn't get it. But yeah, Bernie and I both had rude Rona show up at the house, but we made it to the other side, thankfully.
Well, you were originally going to be here, I think that day or the next day, right?
Yeah.
And we got a call that something was up, right?
Yeah. I wanted to believe it was allergies. And I was like, well, I just have a little tiny tickle in my throat. And then I was like, oh, well, okay, now I've got a little bit of a cough. And I kept thinking it's allergies. But in today's day and age, the responsible thing to do is probably, either get a test or just give it a day without seeing people. But then my taste and my smell went, and I went, oh no, now I know for sure what it is. When the taste and the smell goes, I think that's when you know for sure. Yeah.
I went through the same thing. I had the little bit of I was really tired, had a little bit of a headache, had a little teeny cough. And then I went and got the immediate test.
The rapid test. That's what I had. Yep.
And I was negative.
Oh, yeah.
And guess what? I took an allergy pill and I was fine the next day.
Oh, so
it is hard to distinguish sometimes.
It is very hard. And there's so many symptoms. It's like, so I know so many people that have had it now, and all of ours have played out a little bit differently. And so it's hard to know for sure. And those rapid tests, I have a brother that's a doctor, and he was like, don't get the rapid test unless you are really symptomatic. If you're really symptomatic, the rapid test is going to come up positive. But he said it's like a pregnancy test. It can come up negative, but you're still pregnant. And he was like, so just get the long one. I'm like, I know, but then you might have to wait 3 or 4 days to get the answer back. These are crazy days, that's for sure.
These are. So how did that test you? Did you What did you go through emotionally, you and Bernie, when this happened?
It's funny. I think now, granted, my personality type, I am an optimist by nature. That's just, I'm always going to see the glass half full, which can be really great. And I just ask my kids, it can also be really annoying to people. Like when people are just always positive, it can be very annoying, but I am a positive person by nature. So my initial thing was gratitude that I didn't have it worse. I could breathe fine. I didn't have a bad cough. I knew it wasn't in my lungs. My lungs were clear. So all I could think of was, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm not going to be the one in the hospital. I'm not going to be the one fighting for my life. But that was on day one. Day like 5, 7, when you're still quarantined or isolating even, and then my husband got it. I think what was the most difficult part was trying to figure out how to care for our kids, who then had to stay home from school because both of their parents had COVID. And then, you can't have people come into your house to help take care of them. So how do you do that? And when your youngest child is just begging for a snuggle and you can't give one, I think that for me was the hardest part. But on the other side of it, when I think to myself, that's the hardest thing that I had to go through. And I know so many people who've lost a loved one, because it actually almost makes me choke up talking about it, because I'm so grateful that really that's it. I mean, I got really tired. I'm still struggling with fatigue, where it kind of like will kick in, when you least expect it. I don't know if you had that after you had it, but it's just like all of a sudden it'll kick in. I'm like, why do I feel like I can't hold my head up anymore? Why am I still so tired? I'm like, oh, that's right. That's COVID. But in the grand scheme of things, those are pretty mild symptoms compared to what a lot of people are facing. So I think it also maybe made me have a little bit more compassion for those who are struggling with it, that this isn't cut and dry. We don't have all of the answers. We have the answer in Jesus, but we don't have all of the answers. And if there was ever a time where we just need to have a little bit of grace for one another, I think this might be the season for that.
What about fear?
Well, I think the fear of getting it was stronger than the fear once I had it. So I think the fear of the unknown, and isn't that so true of so much, so often? For me, it was the fear of the unknown. My daughter is highly asthmatic. Back in 2015, we almost lost her. She spent a week in the ICU because of an asthma attack. So all I could think of was, my daughter can't get this. My daughter can't get this. My daughter cannot get this. It's going to attack her lungs, and she doesn't have strong lungs. And then when I got it, the only fear was for her. I could tell how I felt. I was like, this is like a bad flu. I kind of feel pretty miserable. But I think the fear of, I would be fine if it got me bad. The fear of it getting your child is, I think, such a gripping fear. And that was just an everyday committing it to because it wasn't just I'm just going to pray and he's going to take this fear from me. It was every day, sometimes every hour, choosing to take God at his word that I can't control this. I've already breathed on her. I've already kissed her. I've already snuggled her before I ever knew I had it. So if she's going to get it, she's going to get it. If she's not, she's not. But what I can do is I can take God at his word. Sometimes it's an every 30-minute choice, and I can just rest in it because there's nothing I can do to change what's happening in this moment. And that's really what I had to choose to do every day.
I have to thank you and Bernie for doing your little daily musical deal on Facebook.
Yeah, song a day keeps the crazies away.
No. I want to tell you, that was so inspirational every day. And it really, there's so much craziness on Facebook. And to see you guys pop up and do your number. No, that was really cool.
Thank you. It's funny, when the quarantine first started in March, I think it was, we had been on spring break in Florida, and we all of a sudden were coming home early because everyone was like, guys, there's not food left on the shelves. Like, I hope you have toilet paper at home, because there's no toilet paper. There's no milk. And we're like, what? I remember we had flown there and we drove home because we got a cooler full of food in the trunk that we could drive back to our house, because we thought, wait, all of our neighbors are telling us, no, you don't understand. There's nothing on the shelves. And we're like, what are people talking about? So we got home and we're like, okay, well, what can we do to kind of calm our nerves? And for people who don't know my husband, he's a songwriter and a producer. But when I met him, we've been married 21 years, he started as my piano player. And, you know, it's funny, he's gotten so involved in songwriting and producing, he rarely plays the piano anymore. So when it was like, well, nobody's making music right now, we're just going to all be in our house together, he sat down at the piano and he started playing the piano. And I was like, oh, let's just like sing a song, you know, let's just put it on Facebook. Let's see like it really honestly started as well, what else do we have to do? Let's do a song. And we did not understand in that moment what that would become for people. It would become like a lifeline. But if I'm being honest, it actually became a lifeline for us. It was like this return to how we started. And there was something about it that became so precious to us. And the fact that it was becoming a help to other people was a beautiful result. But honestly, I think we kind of kept it going. In the beginning, we thought, well, how long can this be? Like 14 days? We can probably do 14 songs. Like, that's not a lot. I think we've done 72 or 73 now,
Wow.
because we started running out of songs. We're like, we can't keep doing it every day. We can maybe do it once a week. And then I might have to print off my lyrics now because I've run out of songs that I actually have memorized. But it's been a really sweet way to engage with people that have maybe followed me for a long time too. I think you go out and you do these concerts and you travel and you get to connect with a room full of people, but to see social media used for good, I think too, you know, you said it, there's so much crazy on Facebook. I mean, talk about anger and hatred and division. It's like you're just a click away from all of that. So to be able to use that to just be, you know what, we're going to bring 5 minutes of peace. We're going to bring 7, whatever the song is that day, just to kind of just bring hopefully some peace into all the craziness, is something that was a gift for us to get to do.
Of all of the songs, of the 72 songs that are up there, what's number one? What got the most streams?
You know, number one on all of the streams was...
Wait a minute, I got to give a drum roll.
Which I think that she will love this for the rest of her life. She'll remind us of it. Is a song we did with our daughter. Our daughter, Grace, wrote a song back in the 3rd grade called Cares. And the lyric was, the hook was actually from a Rick Warren devotional for kids. And after Gracie had that really bad asthma attack, where she was in the ICU and she almost lost her life, she struggled with some really severe anxiety as a 9-year-old. And she was reading this devotional from Rick Warren, and there was a line in that devotional that said, "Just turn your cares into prayers." And as a 3rd grader, she was like, I think that could be a song. And so she wrote that as a school project. And fast forward then to 2020, and we said, what if we did Cares? Let's do Cares. That song, I think it was like 53 million people like were listening to that song. And so I think that's number one. Number two, I don't really know. It might have been a new song. It might have been My Weapon, maybe. But I think Gracie, our daughter, will forever be like, yeah, but mine was number one.
So Rick Warren, if you're listening, I would demand a royalty.
Right? Exactly. Ask for that, you know, a word for a third, or whatever they say it is. A third for a word.
So have you been writing new material during this downtime? I know you have a new album out, or an album out this year.
Yeah,
Can you tell me about that?
What a year to put an album out.
Yeah, really.
Right?
Although there's a lot of people sitting around with nothing to do.
Exactly. It's like, well, we might as well create. What else can we do? And that's funny.
And
no
all
one's
the
touring.
Listeners.
Yeah,
All the
no
listeners.
one's touring,
Yeah.
but all of us, I think that's the one thing. We reached more people with our song a day. We didn't have to pack a suitcase. We didn't have to get on a bus or an airplane. And we reached more people with doing one song a day than we would have if we toured 40 cities. Do you know what I mean? Because so many people were streaming in every day. And it's funny, we were able to do a live concert from the Ryman Auditorium. And it was really kind of one of those moments where you're like, I've played the Ryman, here in Nashville. It's one of our most famous venues. I've played the Ryman with people in it, and it's been really special. But there's nothing more special than playing the Ryman when there's no people in it, and the backdrop are those stained glass windows and those empty seats. And it was like this really special moment for us to get to do that. But you're like, in the moment, 500,000 people are streaming as it's happening. And you're like, where could I play a concert that 500,000 people were coming at one time? So, in that way, you're like, well, there's a lot in this season that can be used for good. So yeah, I wrote the record that came out in this season were not songs I wrote in this season. They were songs I wrote a couple of years ago when I'd been diagnosed with cancer, and just kind of that process of walking through that. A lot of the songs came out of what I learned in that season. I had no idea that they would be perfect for 2020, but God did in the moment, I don't think any of us knew then what we were going to be walking through now. But we've also been creating music for our church. We go to a church here in Nashville called The Belonging. And so we have been writing music in this season. And I think some of the most powerful songs of our church have come out of the season, which has been really cool. In a moment where, churches weren't meeting in the beginning of this. Our church is meeting now, but we weren't meeting, and yet God was still meeting us. And we were writing these songs out of, this lockdown season, which I feel like are going to be kind of songs that stand the test of time.
Maybe this is an odd question, but if you compare your bout with cancer with what you have just gone through, is there any comparison, or did that help prepare you for what you've just gone through?
I think that helped prepare me because, one of the things when you asked if there were any, how did I deal with the fear? One of the kind of initial fears that tempted to creep in the beginning of COVID for me was, is this going to affect my voice? And a lot of people will say it affects your breathing. A lot of people can't speak the same way. Like you can even hear somebody after I know someone, super healthy, young man who got COVID, and 7 months later, he still has to carry an oxygen tank around because his breathing's never returned. He can't speak a full sentence. And so that was an initial fear that tempted to creep in, like, is this going to affect my singing? But I've already dealt with that fear. And that really came because in 2017, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, which I knew as far as, nobody likes the word cancer, but as far as cancers go, that's a cancer they're going to go in, the kind I had, papillary thyroid cancer, they're going to get it out and you're going to be okay. But my cancerous tumor was laying on my vocal nerve. So they had said to me, hey, we're going to go in and get the cancer out. You're probably not going to sing the same way again. So we want to prepare you for that. Where your tumor is really on your vocal nerve. So to cut it out, it's going to take your range. You're going to have to go through some pretty long, extensive rehabilitation vocally. So all of that of, okay, what do you mean I'm not going to sing the same way again? What do you mean my vocal range isn't going to be the same? What do you mean I'm going to, And it's funny because up to that point, I would have said to you in an interview, because it would have sounded really spiritual, I would have said, well, singing is not who I am. It's just what I do. Like, I am a daughter of the King, and I understand the purpose he has for me, and singing is just what I do. Until they told me that it wasn't going to be there. And I was like, just kidding. It's totally who I am. It's totally who I am. And you're confronted. Sometimes we say things that sound really good. And then when we actually have to prove that we mean what we say, we're found out to be the fraud that we actually have been. I'm like, I'm a total fraud. I didn't mean those things. Like, I said them because they sounded super spiritual, but I really wasn't prepared to live it. And I feel like that's a theme of my life. The Lord's continually giving me opportunity to actually prove that I'm going to live what it is that I say. And that was an opportunity for me to learn that back in 2017. And by the grace of God, my voice is stronger than it's ever been. But I feel like that was a blessing. A lot of people will say that was the miracle. I think that's really just a blessing of God. I think the miracle is that before I ever got to that point of knowing that my voice was going to be stronger than it was before, was what happened, which was my outcome does not determine his goodness. And getting to that real honest place of, okay, so your voice doesn't work. You can never sing again. Does that mean that he's no longer good? Does that mean that he's no longer faithful? And I think when you have to come to terms with realizing, okay, that's a process. That didn't happen overnight. That came through tears and anger and question and unbelief and doubt. And then realizing, okay, I can build my life on the word of God. I can take him at his word. That's all a process and a journey. But for me, I felt like the real miracle came in being able to say my outcome doesn't determine his goodness. So then fast forward to 2020 and I get COVID and I felt a little bit more prepared to say my outcome does not determine his goodness. And I can look at his track record, and his track record's really good. And it doesn't mean that my life's going to turn out perfect. It just means that I have history with God. I've seen that he shows up. I've seen that he's faithful. I've seen that he's kind. I've seen that he's good. And I think when you've got that track record with God, your doubts are still going to come, but you still see that he always is who he says that he is.
So let's talk a little bit about really this season of that you're all going through. It's a every day it's something different. Like you were going to tour? Are you touring? Are you?
Well, yeah, we were touring, then it got canceled. Mm-hmm. And then that was spring, and then that was fall. And then we got to the fall and we were like, I've been doing a Christmas tour with another artist named Danny Goki. This was our 5th year to do our Christmas tour together. And we are doing now 7 dates, I think, or 8 concerts, but that's today. Tomorrow it might be, now we can only do 5 of them because 3 of them have shut down. Or, you just, every day is a totally different story. Last week, my kids were in school. This week, my kids are not in school because school shut down. So every day it's just a little something different,
Has that been hard to adapt to, or you're just like, you just go with it now?
Well, it depends on the day you catch me. Some days I'm really good at rolling with it. And then other days I've had it and I'm screaming at my kids or my husband or all of the above or at the wall or whatever it may be that's at the moment in the room that I'm in. I think some days I do better than others, and some days you roll with it and you figure it out. And other days, I have lived in Nashville for 25 years, but there's not been a single year of my entire life that I've not been home in Seattle for Christmas, not one. This year will be the first year I'm not with my family for Christmas because my parents are elderly and we can't gather together. And you just go, every day presents something different. And some days you don't handle it well. And by you, I mean me. Some days I don't handle it well. Yesterday was one of those days. My husband is probably still bandaging his wounds. He's a good man, that Bernie. He's a good man. But then other days you wake up and you're like, you know what? We're going to make lemonade out of these lemons. And then other days, for me, one of the things I've really learned in this season, I said it earlier, is that I'm an optimist by nature, which can be great, but it can be annoying for somebody who isn't. And also, I think sometimes it's important to actually confront disappointment. I don't think it's good to sit in your disappointment or to sit in your grief for too long. But I do think it's important to confront it, because when you don't, it's going to come for you at some point. And for me, I really learned that in this season because I was constantly trying to make lemonade out of lemons. Every day my kids would wake up, I'd be like, okay, today we're going to paint by numbers or whatever it is that we're going to do a puzzle. We're going to, we're going to have the time of our lives. And I noticed them getting really angsty, like super angsty, and I gave them this moment where I feel like maybe it was the Holy Spirit that quickened it in me, because it's not my nature to be really confrontational with hardship. It's just not my nature. And so I actually said, hey guys, what is it that you've been disappointed about in this season? And just giving them that opportunity to talk and voice their disappointment, their anger, their frustration. I mean, of course, I've got 3 daughters, so there were a lot of tears. But more than that, it taught me a lesson that you need to give space to actually just talk about your disappointment, just to confront it. Like, I'm upset about this and I'm upset about this. And then you get it out. And then you can move to making lemonade. But I think sometimes you got to deal with the lemons first. Like, you got to roll, right? To get great juice out of a lemon, you got to roll the lemon around before you squeeze it. And I think that was important for me to learn, was just kind of giving everybody a little bit of grace to just talk about their disappointment.
So let's talk about your album a little bit. First of all, it's amazing, but it's quite unique. Where did that come from? Where did that inspiration come from?
So, it's funny because my husband has been producing my records for a long time. And when we went into, this is my 10th album, which sounds like a lot, but really isn't a lot when you look at other artists that put out records every 18 months. I marvel at that. I'm not a quick creative. I'm usually about 2 or 3 years in between records, but this was 5 years. This is the longest I've ever gone. And that's because obviously I got cancer in the middle of there. But then after it, I had a lot of really beautiful, well-meaning people have a lot of positive words for me. It was always like, the Lord told me, you're going to write the songs of you. He brought your voice back stronger than it's ever been. You're going to write the songs of your life. And while I know that came from a beautiful place in those people, for me, it was like, what do the songs of my life even sound like? What if these are not the best songs I've ever written? What if these are just okay? Or what if they're only just kind of good, And I felt such a pressure that it put me in a creative, like I was locked up creatively. And I felt like I couldn't get unlocked. I was just stuck for a long time. And I remember this first song that we wrote talked about how his presence is our greatest weapon. And if I could say that really the Lord, one thing more than any other thing that he's taught me in the last couple of years is about his presence. And we talk a lot about how he never leaves us and never forsakes us. That's his omnipresence. That's his presence at all places at all times. That there's, right, Psalm 139 says, where can I go from your presence, right? But we don't often talk about his manifest presence, which is his presence made known. And I think that there's comfort in knowing that we're never alone, but there's authority and power in knowing that his presence made known to us becomes like this fuel and a weapon that helps us face whatever it is that we're facing. And his presence made known, that manifest presence, has become so real to me in the last few years that I wanted to go, okay, if I could try to capture that in a sound, what would that sound like? What would, not just lyrically, but what would that sonically sound like? And I remember going to my husband and saying, okay, if we're not thinking about what are the rules of radio, like you have to have, this amount of time in a song, and okay, we can't have it be too slow at the beginning, and you have to take every rule away. There's no rules. There's just a sound that you feel like you want to make. What does that sound like? And he said, well, it sounds like the London Symphony. That was his first, well, it sounds like the London Symphony. And so we made that decision. We're going to go to London and we're going to record the symphony. And it's funny because when you listen to this music, I think now that I explain it to people, they're like, we couldn't put words to it, but it has a different sound. And I think it's because we were trying to capture what does that manifest presence sound like to us. And it sounded and read. So the lyrics and the sonic sound is exactly what we felt like we created.
Your Christmas song, your Christmas single, tell me about that, because we're playing that.
Thank you. So that is I Believe, right? I believe, sorry. Getting that part out. So the Christmas song, it's fascinating because that's actually really old. I recorded it back in 2005. And I feel like, like when you've got a good song, and it was another song that I just re-recorded that my husband wrote with Mark Hall back in 2005. Something about that year gave some really good songs called Praise You in the Storm. You've got a good song when it doesn't really matter what the year is or when it was made, but it just stands the test of time. And it's not defined by a style or a sound, but it's just, you can listen to it. I can only imagine is forever one of those songs. You can listen to it 30, 40 years from now. It's still going to be amazing. And I don't know that I would say, I believe I would never be that presumptuous to say that a song I wrote is that, but I feel like the message of it is that. And if there's ever a time where we need to remember how important it is what we believe, because truth right now seems to be changing. There's no absolute truth anymore in the culture we're living in, right? It's like his truth and her truth and that news network's truth and that person's truth or Facebook's truth. And you're like, no, actually there is still absolute truth. And it's the truth of the Word of God. That's the one thing that never changes. It's the one thing that we go, okay, I don't know actually who to believe in this moment of crazy, but I know the one that I can believe that never changes. That's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And really that song is my statement of belief. Like, I believe, even though this story was told over 2,000 years ago, and even though it makes a beautiful nursery story, I've got this beautiful picture book for my kids about the birth of Jesus. And you're like, but it was never just in a book. It wasn't just a good fairy tale. It's actually like the truth that stands the test of time. And it's really just my statement of belief. And I feel like more than ever in my lifetime, having that statement of truth is more important and becoming increasingly important in the days we live in.
What is your most requested song?
Oh, wow. I feel like it changes. Overall, probably held, probably still to this day. I'm grateful for that song because I think it's the song. Every artist would say they need a song that gives them, decades of career. But recently, probably a song called Clean. Probably, it's a toss-up. Held, Clean, Your Great Name. Those three always. If I don't sing Your Great Name, they'll throw things. So probably Your Great Name too. But
when was the last time? When was the last time they threw things at you?
Right? Okay, maybe not. That's in my rock star dreams.
Well, we can arrange that.
They're throwing things. Oh, I don't exactly what things I'd want them to throw, but
oh my goodness. As we look forward to this next year, what is your hope? What is your prayer? This thing could go many directions, and of course we have various vaccines now that are being developed. And of course, a lot of people will not want those. So that's the next big fight. First it was a mask. Now it's going to be whether they get the vaccine or not, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So we're probably going to go through that fight for the next year or so.
Yep. There'll always be some fight.
Yeah. Boy, we live in a fight 24/7 now. But what is your hope?
It's funny because I'm a little bit reticent to say my hope because I said that in 2019. Now you saw all the memes, right? Of like, I want to go back to 2000. I feel like I need to go apologize to 2019 for all the bad things I said about it because we didn't know 2020 would be 2020. And it's funny because I remember feeling like 2020, you heard everybody declaring it was the year of perfect vision in January. Everybody was like, this is going to be the greatest year. It's like, and yet you can, even in, now near the end of the year, I feel like, but it was still a year of some God making some things pretty clear, actually, making some things really clear. And for me, not just my hope for my family, but I think as somebody who I love the church. I love the church. I'm a local church girl. I grew up in the church. I'm still involved in my local church. I love the church. And I think seeing the division that's in the church, I think if I love the church, may we never forget how much he loves his church. Like he loves his bride, like he loves his church. And I feel like my hope is that the church will return, not to all the things they're fighting about, the things that we've brought into the church that Jesus never modeled for us, whether it be, I'm not talking about standing for righteousness. Those things are important. But when we bring, politics or this fight or that fight into a place that it doesn't belong, we set it up like an idol. You know what I mean? And I feel like God is saying 2020 was the year to try to show you guys that you've got some idols that need to be torn down. And we need to get back to, okay, that's right, the Great Commission. Remember that? We're supposed to go into the world and show them the love of Jesus and make disciples. And that's my hope, is that we would return to that, not being so focused in our individual, moment. Even in this country, I think sometimes we get so focused on a United States problem that we forget that God so loved the world, like the world. Like our job is to love the world and to go into the world. And that starts with our neighbor. Our pastor just said, are we so concerned about legislation that we forget about our neighbor's salvation? And that just rocked me to my core, because I went, you're right. We're getting so caught up and getting so angry about these things, when are we actually just going to our neighbor and loving him? And I feel like that's my hope, is that the church is going to see like, okay, this all kingdoms rise and fall, but we have a job to do. And my hope is that we return to that and do it with all of our hearts until he returns.
Oh, that's great. That's good stuff. And just tell me, you've already told me you're not going to Seattle for Christmas.
Yes.
So
well, we're trying the day after Christmas. We're trying to go for just a couple of days, even if it's just sending love to my parents through their screen door. It's worth the flight.
So what's Christmas? What do you think it's going to be like around your house this year?
Well, it'll be more quiet. I am the youngest of 5 kids in my family, and all of my siblings have kids, and the kids are even starting to have kids. So there's about 38 of us in just my immediate, family when we go to Seattle, and everybody's loud and everybody talks at the same time. So I've been trying to prepare my kids when we wake up in just our house on Christmas, and it's just the 5 of us. It's going to be more quiet. Grandpa's not going to be at the iron skillet making your breakfast on Christmas. It's going to be a little bit different, but we're going to make the best of it. You're going to wake up in your own beds. You're going to come down and see presents under your own Christmas tree for the first time ever. So we're trying to focus on the beauty of it. The beauty of just being the 5 of us and building beautiful memories and making the most of it, and realizing that what's happening this year is not the end of the story. It's just one year in a beautiful timeline of life, and we can choose to make the best or make the worst, and we're going to choose to make the best.
Well, I will tell you that after 9/11 that year,
yes,
in every year, we would go to usually Aruba, but right. But 9/11, nobody was traveling.
No,
that next month, and that particular year sticks out to me because my kids were little. They were 4 and 2 years old, and that obviously we had to make a big change that year. But that year sticks out to me, and I still remember how I played with my kids. Yeah. Because we did take a local trip.
Yeah.
And that year sticks out more than ever. Yeah. So I think we have that opportunity this year.
Yes. To make great memories.
Make great memories instead of, the whole airplane thing and the travel thing and the craziness thing and the, I forgot this. And,
totally.
Did I turn off the stove before I got on the plane thing?
Yes, I do know. But we have that moment to say, hey, we're going to choose to make great memories. And it'll be different, but different doesn't have to be bad. Different can be really great. And I do think we'll look back, at least my husband and I will, and go, oh, we didn't have to pack a suitcase and lug all of that luggage through an airport. And we had a moment just to be still. And I think it's going to be really beautiful. So I'm excited about it.
Well, Natalie, this has been great. This has been fun. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate your talent and all the inspiration you bring to us. And
well, thank you for having me.
I'm glad you guys got through the COVID thing.
Thank you. We are too. We're so grateful. So grateful. Pray health on everybody who's listening that's struggling or has somebody that they love that's struggling. I don't ever want to make light just because my case was mild. Our thoughts and our prayers are with everybody that's struggling in this season, that the Lord would just be near. Emmanuel, God with us. Woo! So grateful for that truth.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you, Natalie. Natalie Grant has been my special guest here on CIA Contagious Influences of America, the podcast. And boy, I'll tell you, what a crazy last few weeks that she and Bernie and her family have had. And we're just tickled to death that you all are safe, and that you're ready to pump out some more hits, and that you're bringing us this such amazing music this holiday, this Christmas. Let me emphasize, Christmas season. And we just love you guys. So keep it up, and you guys keep the faith, okay? Hey, this has been CIA Contagious Influences of America, the podcast from the producers of Keep the Faith. And I'm David Sams. Remember to go out there and live that life in living color, because it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting than living in black and white. And on top of it, please do rate and review us. That is really important. All right? We'll see you next time here on CIA. Merry Christmas, everybody.